Something else that you feel very passionately about is the therapeutic benefit of music. Now, we have seen, and it's been very well publicised, how helpful music is to people with dementia. But you have taken that, you've had a broader experience even than that, haven't you, Stephen?
Yes, I have. I'm really lucky that I volunteer in a school for students with profound and multiple learning difficulties. And in fact, I've sort of been connected with that world for quite a long time. And I really am quite passionate about the impact of music on young people and adults that have a learning difficulty or a condition that perhaps prevents them from enjoying music as we would. So I started going into a school and particularly into one class, and I would play the piano. And actually I have to admit to being really worried about doing this because I wanted to know more about the students themselves. I wanted to know what the conditions were. I wanted to know what the teachers wanted to get from them. And I suddenly began to realise actually that was a really big question. So just go in and play. And as I progressed through that, I would go in for 45, well actually, they told me to go in for 20 minutes. I ended up staying an hour because I loved doing it so much. And I would just play the piano. And eventually, once the students had sort of got used to the sound and the sensory experience that they were having, I began to notice things were happening. So one young student would lie on the floor, just below the piano, obviously on a cushion, very, very safely, but then would start tapping rhythms on the piano. And clearly he had a really strong rhythmical sense with very, very little possibility of verbalizing anything, but would tap rhythms. So what I would do is I would play music which echoed his rhythms, and it almost became a really lovely duet that we were doing, and I was responding to him. And what was interesting is he was in charge. It wasn't me. He was in charge. And we had a lovely young girl who had no mobility, was in a wheelchair, did not speak, and had really problems with her neck. And we tried to work out what we could do to get her to move. And I remember after weeks and weeks of just playing the piano, I decided one day to stop. And nothing happened, so I played again, and I stopped again, and nothing happened. And I thought, well, I need to see that this student feels that they're in charge of this experience. So the next time I stopped, I didn't play. And it felt like a very long time. And very, very slowly, the student started to turn, to look toward me. And I think to find out why the music had stopped. And the moment she looked and turned, and we were all really quite emotional at this because it was one of the first bits of movement that we'd seen from this student in 6 months, possibly 8 months. So when she looked, I started playing the piano again, and there was just a little semblance of a smile which sort of said to us that she was in charge and she'd become concerned that I'd stopped playing the piano and she wanted me to start again. So she needed to do something, and she looked and she played. And then we'd get students to touch the piano so they could hear the vibrations. We had a number of students who were impaired in their sight, so they'd touch the piano, or we'd put their hands on the keyboard so they'd feel the power of the instrument. We had another young boy that would sit at the top end of the piano, and he would almost try to show his understanding of high sounds in the upper keyboards, and he'd move his hands into the air, and then as I moved down, he would move his hands down. It was almost choreographic in a way, and I think it's not until we unpack all of that and begin to realise the absolute power of music upon anybody that we can really appreciate what it is that we have and what we can give to people, and how much they can actually gain from that experience. Even something as tiny as playing a piano in a little classroom, it has a massive impact.